And hello there, friends. You thought we were done with Peace Walker? Not quite yet. So I want to start Ground Zeroes very soon, and y'all were saying that I need to listen to some tapes. So I have that message from Eva, but then there's other things. Now one of you mentioned Paz's diary. This one says Paz's tape. I don't know if that's supposed to be the same thing, but I'm gonna listen to all of them. This is literally just gonna be us listening to things. So enjoy. Let's go to Eva first. Oh, there's 3 sessions.
Hello, Snake. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, Eva.
I hear you've been causing quite the ruckus in Nicaragua. Nothing much to report from my end. The legacy's being put to good use. Or so they tell me. But enough with the small talk. There's something I need to tell you.
What?
You saw the photo that came with this tape, right?
No.
The boss gave that to me. 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I should have told you sooner. I probably should have told you right away. But sending it to you hasn't been an easy decision to make. It's taken me 10
Wait,
years.
what? What happened?
Once you've heard what I have to say, you'll understand why.
Huh? Do I know
That
what's
photo
going on?
belonged to her. I know what you're thinking. What does
I don't
she have
remember
to
the
do with
photo.
this? You've probably seen it 100 times in the press already. Obviously, it's of the Mercury 7, the first group of American astronauts, the heroes of Project Mercury. But there were actually 8 people in that photo. One of them was edited out, erased, without a trace. That 8th astronaut, the one airbrushed out of existence.
Oh.
That was her, Snake.
Okay.
Now why did they need to keep her existence a secret? What were they trying to hide? The answer goes back even further. 17 years ago.
Wow.
It was the height of the Cold War. The Eastern and Western blocs were racing to develop space technology to match their nuclear arsenals. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite. The Americans were stunned. They'd been led to believe their country
Space
led
race.
the world in science and technology. That shock quickly turned into fear. If the Russians had the know-how to launch a satellite into space, they could use it to launch a nuclear missile too. Frantic, the US threw everything it had into the space race.
Yep.
The following year,
So
the Army
cool how
succeeded
this
in
goes
launching
along
the
with
first
actual
American
history.
satellite, Explorer 1. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration was established that fall, and Project Mercury with it. The goal was to send a man into space, and 7 men were chosen as pilot candidates. The media dubbed them the Mercury 7. They were immediately hailed as national heroes, icons of Western space exploration. But after Explorer, America suffered a series of failed rocket launches. Desperate, the government made a fateful decision. Unable to wait for its space program to mature, they'd steal the Soviets' technology, at the same time sabotaging their space program. You know better than anyone how hard a mission that was. The Soviet space program was shrouded in secrecy. Recovering that information would be no easy task. Using the help of an insider, they'd insert a sleeper agent into the research institute, or else recruit one of those insiders to do the job for them. And, if necessary, the mission leader would have to go in and sort things out themselves. Someone was needed with experience, knowledge, and superior intuition. And the only one for the job was the boss.
Wow.
The president himself asked for her by name. He needed someone who could be trusted with the fate of a nation. Who else to turn to but the hero of the Second World War? It was June 1959. So you see, Snake, that's why she left. That was the top secret mission that took her from you.
Wow.
But her selection ruffled a few CIA feathers. They didn't appreciate the president going over their head like that. The mission was tough enough already, and now the CIA was dragging its feet. She couldn't get anything out of them. No manpower, no nation, left to her own devices, the boss made a decision she knew would come back to haunt her. She decided to tap into the Philosopher's Network. And that's when the wheels of fate began to turn.
Ooh, that was just session 1.
The Philosophers were a secret society of power brokers formed in a pact between the US, Russia, and China in the early 20th century. Of course, by that time, the American and Soviet branches had already parted ways. But there were those among the remaining Russian philosophers not entirely happy with the one-party communist state. The boss reached out to them. She arranged clandestine meetings in Berlin, hoping to find a way into OKB-1, the Soviets' premier design bureau. She worked tirelessly to win their sympathy, in some instances using huge sums of cash, in others by helping them over the Berlin Wall. It was a dangerous game to be playing. The Philosophers had everything on her, and not just information either. She'd given birth to a child on the battlefield, only to have them immediately snatch it away. I know she told you that story. If that child was in the hands of the Soviet philosophers, she'd be putting more than just herself in danger. But she did what she had to do. At the time, the Soviet Union was believed to have an arsenal of missiles far greater than that of the United States. If that proved to be the case, Moscow would be free from the yoke of nuclear deterrence, raising the possibility that the Soviets might actually launch nukes if they felt it necessary. As you know, the so-called missile gap turned out to be a Soviet bluff. Moscow had gone to incredible lengths to perpetuate the lie. In fact, the whole space race was really just a part of an elaborate ruse. Only we didn't know that at the time. She used to joke that even she swallowed the whole missile gap story, hook, line, and sinker. She put her life on the line, for the sake of her country.
So glad that Eva is here to tell Snake all this stuff.
And it was because of her sacrificial efforts that America succeeded in placing a sleeper agent inside OKB-1. NASA began to receive huge volumes of technical data from the Soviet program. By the end of 1959, they'd succeeded in sending a chimpanzee named Sam on a ballistic rocket flight. The rocket never left the atmosphere. But all the same, it was a huge success for NASA, restoring confidence in its technology. Then, just when the operation was starting to produce results, the CIA came calling. "You're a war hero," they said. "No need for you to dirty your hands with this sort of black ops. We'll take it from here." In effect, they wanted to reap the rewards for themselves. But the boss didn't object. "My part is over," she said. "I don't care what you do with the data now." It seemed as if NASA was making great strides toward manned spaceflight, while the Russians lagged behind. They even got a report from their mole at OKB-1. "The safe return of Sam has sent our scientists into a panic," he said. Soon afterward, the Soviet Union sent an animal of its own into space on Sputnik 2, the dog Kudryavka, better known to the world as Laika. But Laika was fated never to return to Earth. The U.S. can recover its spacecraft from the ocean upon re-entry. But the Soviet Union only borders the frozen Arctic. They had to bring their spacecraft down on land. How could they soften the impact enough to bring a living creature back safely? The agent reported that the Soviets hadn't yet found a solution to that problem. The plot to sabotage the Soviet space program seemed to be working, too. First, they tampered with Sputnik 4's re-entry. Then, 2 months later, one of their rockets exploded on the launch pad. They did manage to send 2 dogs into orbit aboard Sputnik 5 and return them safely to Earth. But the agent dismissed it as a fluke. Dogs, sure, but humans? They didn't have the technology. Everybody believed it. Everybody was complacent. Everybody. Except the boss. There was something about the Sputnik 5 schematics they were getting that didn't seem right. Some kind of ejection device on the capsule that didn't quite belong. She couldn't figure out the reason why it was there. What was it supposed to eject? NASA shrugged off her concerns. They figured it was probably meant to eject the flight recorder in case of an accident. The boss pleaded with them to investigate, but the CIA wasn't having it.
Of course not.
They probably thought she was trying to reclaim some of the glory for herself. The boss wouldn't give up. She decided to head to the Soviet Union herself, alone, without any backing from the CIA. By the beginning of the next year, 1961, she'd succeeded in infiltrating OKB-1. That's when she saw the truth for the first time.
Just trying to look up the exact dates because it says it on the opening of when each game takes place. I don't know. All right, session 3.
The sleeper that she'd worked so hard to place was a double agent. He'd been turned by the Soviets and was feeding the Americans lies. But what shocked the boss even more was why. The CIA's access agent had been taking a large cut of the sleeper's pay. The sleeper felt what little he was left with wasn't worth the risk.
Who?
When he got a better offer from Moscow, he took it. At some point, the Americans' intelligence operation had become an open book to the Soviets. And contrary to what the sleeper had been reporting, the Soviets' manned spaceflight technology was quite advanced. It wasn't until she infiltrated OKB-1 herself that the boss learned the truth about Sputnik 5. After the spacecraft re-entered the atmosphere, it ejected the pilot, seat and all, at an altitude of 7,000 meters. It was the Soviet solution to the problem of land recovery. The mystery device attached to Sputnik 5 was for that purpose. The pilot would parachute down from that high altitude wearing a bulky spacesuit. Crazy, I know. The Soviets knew exactly how dangerous it was, of course. So much so that they gave Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, a special 2-rank promotion before re-entry. Only Moscow could come up with this kind of plan. With total state control over information, they could easily pretend it never happened in the event of a failure. The boss passed the info on to NASA. It was their worst nightmare. The glory of mankind's first spaceflight was about to be stolen from them by the Soviet Union. It was Sputnik all over again. And the CIA was caught no less off guard. Their ineptitude had caused the fiasco in the first place. The Soviets' deception was brilliant. They'd woven a masterful tapestry of truth and fiction to convince the Americans their intelligence operations were proceeding as planned. No one but the boss could have seen through it. It was obvious the Soviets had some gifted minds working on their side. But that certainly didn't excuse the CIA's massive failure. The CIA wasn't done, though, and devised an ingenious plan to avoid taking responsibility. Luckily for them, a new president had been elected the previous November, John F. Kennedy. As he didn't know the case history when taking office, the CIA was able to feed lies to his new administration.
Oh, God.
They masked their own failures, placing the blame squarely on the boss's
This is all just
shoulders.
a game.
After all,
I know this is a game. Like, Peace Walker's a game, but the history, it's just all a game. Like, between the Soviet Union and the United States. This whole thing of putting people's lives in jeopardy, trying to be number one, literally, like, it's just a game. I mean, and that's the whole point, and that's what everyone talks about with the whole Cold War. It's just bullshit, the whole thing.
Seems clear it had to do with having her own child taken. She could never inflict the same pain on anyone else. The CIA used that against her. In his election campaign, Kennedy had vowed to close the missile gap with Moscow. If America lost the space race, that promise would be worthless. The fact that the president had no links to the philosophers only made things worse. He was completely unaware of the secret networks she'd used to complete her mission. In his eyes, she was no better than a traitor.
Okay.
The fate that awaited her was cruel beyond belief.
That's it? Shit. Oh, there's more. Thank God. Oh, wow. Okay. There's 7. I was about to say. That can't be it. It can't end there.
The order came down from above. The boss would take the official blame for the sleeper's betrayal. More so, she'd serve as the guinea pig for NASA's manned spaceflight program. By then, NASA had gotten as far as sending a chimp named Ham into space. Now came a whole battery of ground tests to pave the way for a human to take its place. High G tests, zero G tests, spacesuit tests, simulations in pressurized oxygen environments. Some of the tests were highly dangerous, too dangerous for the Mercury 7, who were by then already media darlings. So the boss was made to stand in for them. She could have refused the order, argued her side of the story against the CIA, but she didn't. The way she saw it, her military experience made her a potentially valuable asset to those tests. She felt it was her duty to accept. She soon proved herself right.
She is just so
The
pure.
boss was more than just a guinea pig. She drew on her experience to give the staff focused advice exactly where it was needed. NASA's space program took off again. At the rate they were going, putting a man in space seemed within reach. The higher-ups at NASA were impressed with her talents. They took to calling her the 8th astronaut, the Mercury Lady. The photo I sent you was taken around that time. I suppose maybe they were planning to use it as propaganda, the world's first female astronaut. But then, just as things were looking up, they hit a new snag. The government told them to add a window. There were no windows in NASA's spacecraft back then. Ham never saw the stars around him. But Washington insisted. Their sources told them Soviet spaceships had windows.
Oh my God.
Space exploration as a form of propaganda in itself. After all, what was the point of sending a man into space if he couldn't tell the world what he'd seen? Most of all, though, they simply couldn't have the Russians doing something they couldn't.
Of course.
It was sheer madness, and everybody knew it. NASA was already facing impossible deadlines. Now they were adding yet another element of uncertainty to the mix. Installing a window would both weaken the spacecraft and make it harder to shield the occupant from cosmic rays.
Yeah.
They weren't about to put their Mercury 7 golden boys in that kind of danger.
So they put
So the
her
boss
in there.
was chosen as the pilot.
Wow.
Instead. Even if she made it up into space, she was given less than a 20% chance of returning to Earth alive.
Jesus.
But she took it in stride, even helping them make the necessary design changes to the Mercury capsule. It was like going to work every day at NASA to make her own coffin.
Jesus.
Then, without warning, the U.S. received intelligence that the Soviets had moved their Vostok spacecraft to the launch site. The launch was set for the following day, April 12th, 1961.
See, this whole thing is why people believe that the Americans never actually went to the moon, because it's just all propaganda and it's all just a big game and race, and like that's why so many people just believe that, because they're like, well, we didn't have the technology, we shouldn't have been able to get to there, like we were able to, so it was all just a setup from the government. They believe that the whole stage of how they filmed the moon landing is in Area 51. That's what like a lot of people believe, because it's just all bullshit. I can't believe that this is actually a part of history. Isn't that crazy? Like this is a part of history. This seems like this should just be in a video game, but it's a video game based off of real history. Fucking crazy, man.
America couldn't let the Soviets beat them with Vostok. NASA was forced to cut short the testing process and move the launch date up. They pulled out all the stops to get it scheduled for the earliest hours of the next day. The spacecraft would be launched from Cape Canaveral in the dead of night. For the flight path, they chose a course that would take her as far east as possible. She'd be able to see the Earth in daylight from the window, at least for a little while. The boss climbed into the Mercury capsule, having completed less than 80% of the regular flight procedures. Both the timing and the flight path were risky, and testing was far from complete. But NASA had no other choice. The boss, for her part, never expected to come home alive. She was going on a one-way trip, the American version of Laika the dog. And yet she went all the same. Someone has to be first, she said. If fate has chosen me,
It's amazing.
then I accept. For my country, for the balance of the world.
Jesus.
That's how she saw things.
And that's why
chances
Snake
may
is
be
the complete
slim,
opposite.
but
He's
I'll
saying,
take
fuck my
I've
country.
accepted my fate.
He sees,
If
I mean,
anyone can get
she
through
sees
this,
the bullshit, but
I can. Then,
she's
on
so
April 12th
passionate
at
about
1:30 in the morning,
about
the boss
this.
entered space. It was nothing short of a miracle. First,
Just
that
two
she'd made
completely
it in
different
an incomplete spacecraft. And second,
ideas.
that her flight coincided almost exactly with Gagarin's. As the sun rose over the horizon, and cosmic rays began to bombard her through the window, she saw the Earth. I think you've heard the story before. It was a world without borders, a perfect jewel. All nations, all ideologies. They seemed so far away. It almost made her laugh, knowing that they'd risked so much to beat the Soviets by a few short minutes. If she'd seen Vostok from her window, she probably would have waved. But the two spacecraft were destined for very different fates. Gagarin circled the Earth and returned to the Soviet Union, safe and sound. The Mercury capsule, on the other hand, deviated from its planned re-entry angle. The addition of a window had thrown the capsule's aerodynamics off balance. The boss's coffin veered wildly off course and began to plunge earthward.
Okay, what else?
The course deviation caused the capsule to miss its splashdown point by a wide margin. It didn't have enough time to decelerate before crashing into the sea. The force of the impact shattered the spacecraft before it started to sink like a stone. The boss used the last of her strength to escape to the surface. Her body was covered in bruises and scorched by radiation. It was a miracle she was still alive. She slipped into a coma and didn't regain consciousness for 6 months. To some, what was worst of all was that she had lost the space race to Gagarin by only a few minutes. That aside, it should have been a proud day for America. Its first manned spaceflight. Sadly, her accomplishment was kept out of the history books. An attempt to save face by Washington. In contrast to Gagarin's orbital flight, America had only managed a ballistic trajectory. Her flight time was much shorter, too. And most importantly, the Soviets had brought back both spacecraft and pilot safely. NASA couldn't even conjure up a half-hearted tale of heroic survival. The coup de grace, though, was the Soviet propaganda campaign that kicked into gear after the flight. The Earth was blue. Those were the words of Gagarin on his return, and the whole world was listening. In the blink of an eye, Gagarin was an international celebrity, earning accolades from every corner. It was a PR coup for the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, Washington could only grit its teeth in silence. They decided there was no value in making the boss's flight public, that it would only make matters worse. So they buried it instead, labeling it a dark mission. NASA and the CIA did everything in their
So much
power
for her
to erase
country,
all
and
traces
they
of
shat
the
on
boss
her and
from
called her a
Project
war
Mercury.
criminal.
The result was the photo you see before you.
It's fucking crazy.
Not a bad job,
And
huh?
then she wasn't even
Not
like
only did they
killed in the
expunge
end,
her
because then she
flight
was
from
put
the
into an
record,
AI.
They denied that she ever existed.
Wow.
And that wasn't the end of it.
No wonder
As an
y'all love the
alibi,
boss. I didn't
the
get it when
military
I
claimed
was
she'd
playing
taken part in the
Metal Gear
CIA's
Solid
botched
3. I was
Bay
like,
of
I don't get
Pigs
why everyone
plot
likes
to
her.
take back
And then in the
Cuba.
end, I was like, oh, I understand a
And when
little
the boss
bit, but I
was
still don't
finally
get
well
it.
enough to
I
return
get
to
it now.
service, they wouldn't take her back. She was forced to go underground. In the public eye, the boss was still a hero of World War II. In reality, though, she was anything but that. She was a non-person, fit only for the blackest of black ops. In effect, she may as well have been dead. Gagarin went on a worldwide tour in front of millions of adoring fans. The boss, meanwhile, was a walking secret, unable to breathe a word about her experience. The authorities in Washington had this to say: "Why are you still here? If only you'd had the decency to give us a nice quote like Gagarin and then die an honorable death, you'd have gone down as a hero." 3 weeks later, on May 5th, Alan Shepard, one of the Mercury 7, made his own ballistic flight. They sure didn't try to cover up his achievement. Of course, he owed his success to the lessons learned from the boss's tragedy. Before sending Gagarin up into space, the Soviets had used a mannequin called Ivan Ivanovich to test the landing procedure, which would make the boss America's version of a crash test dummy. But she didn't care. "I'm happy to be the dummy," she said, "if it'll help the project succeed." Nothing would give me greater satisfaction. And that still wasn't the end of it. The boss had worked through the anti-Moscow faction of the Soviet Union's philosophers.
Because the boss doesn't
to
see
place
this
the
as
sleeper
she's
agent.
working
And at
for
some point,
the government.
the
She
Soviets
sees
found
this
out
as
that.
she's working for her country.
Yet the
Doesn't
Americans
matter who's
remained
running it.
oblivious
It's her
to the end.
country that she's
Even the
doing all
philosopher
this shit
network
for.
the boss plugged
It's not
into
for the people in
never
Washington.
tipped them off to the double cross. That could only mean one of two
Wow.
things.
That's
Either
powerful.
the pro-Moscow philosophers had intervened, or the anti-Moscow philosophers had been turned. Either way, it was a situation their American counterparts couldn't stand. To preserve the philosopher's good name, and to repay her debt, so to speak, the boss once again made her way into the Soviet Union. There, she found herself face to face with the Soviets' own agent.
One more.
And who should she find awaiting her return to Russia? The one who'd turned her sleeper against her. Who'd fed them lies all this time. It was her former comrade in arms. The father of her child.
What? Who is the
The
father
man
of her
known
child?
as the Sorrow.
Oh, that's right. The sorrow. The
He
sorrow.
didn't know
Duh,
it
duh,
was
duh,
the
duh, duh.
boss
Okay.
who'd sent the sleeper.
I
Or
knew
to be
that.
more
Sorry.
precise, the Soviet philosophers never told him. Former lovers. Forced to fight.
That's
to the
right.
death.
That's right. I forgot about that.
One would live and one would die, she told me. That was the revenge the Soviet philosophers had in store for me. If both of them survived, their child would suffer in their place. They were left with no other option. The boss shot him. He offered no resistance. When she returned from the Soviet
I wanna
Union,
learn
there was
more
no
about the
place
Sorrow.
left for her to go. She'd sacrificed everything. Everything. For her country.
Yes.
And in return, they treated her like a dead woman.
Yep.
She was made a scapegoat for no good reason.
She's fighting for her country, not the people.
Only because power had changed hands in Washington.
Whereas
Any
Snake is the
lesser
opposite. He's
being
fighting for the people and not
would have
his country.
long since cracked. It was then that one of her old SAS comrades reached out to her. Major
Ah.
Zero.
Okay.
And so Fox was born.
Okay.
She undertook a mission that, well, you should know better than anybody. you were a part of it. 20 days after Shepard's flight, President Kennedy announced that America would put a man on the moon. Without the intelligence the boss obtained, America's space program would never have caught up. Armstrong and Aldrin might never have walked on the moon, but the Americans' gain had cost the boss her health, her honor, and the man she loved.
I don't give a fuck
The word
about her.
tragedy doesn't even begin to describe what she endured. The Soviets continued their manned space flights, and in 1963, Valentina Tereshkova became the so-called first woman in space. It's said they took their cue from NASA's long-buried Mercury Lady project. And so that, Snake, is the mission that kept her away from you for so long.
Wow.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Why not use me as her agent? She knew I'd never even think of betraying her. I think it's because she didn't want to drag you into it. She probably knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
To complete the mission, she'd have to turn to the philosophers, and once she did that, whatever came of it, there'd be a price to pay. No one understood that better than her. So please, Snake, let it go.
Oh, you won't though.
When she gave me the photo, she left me to decide whether or not to pass it along to you. I know she was torn about it, just as I was. She knew you'd probably blame yourself. Why did she hold on to it for so long? That, I can't say. To remind her of how much it hurt to be
Interesting though that she
She
said
wasn't
all
that
this to
kind of
Eva.
person.
Like, I know Eva's taking guesses a lot, and she's like, it's probably because of this, probably because of that.
I think
But the boss did share a lot with her, and I know it's because
message
Eva
to you.
was in like the same program or whatever
She
that the
had her
boss grew up
identity,
in,
her
but
life
she was from, she was
taken
working for
away.
China,
But she wanted
and the boss
you,
wasn't.
of all people, to know the truth. Snake, you've probably already figured this out, but it's no accident that I'm only now sending you something I've withheld for so long. A little bird tells me you recently made a big decision.
With what?
You and the boss are different people. I understand that. And I'm not trying to second guess you. I simply wanted you to know what she saw, how she felt. That's all.
Is she referring
Keep
to
it with you,
Snake
Snake. Keep it deep inside.
deterring from the
Don't
United
ever
States
forget
and
the path she took.
making out her heaven?
Because you and I are the only people on this earth who know the truth.
Well, thank you for sharing the truth with me, Eva.
Boss,
Whew.
I'm sorry, but I can't.
Cool. I'm glad that they added Snake talking at the end so that we know. Because we're feeling like, you know, like, yeah, boss, you know, that sort of thing. But Snake's like, nope. I'm not going down that same road. Boss's final mission, Strangelove simulation. Okay. I think I'll work my way... Should I work my way backwards? No, let's go. Let's do pause.
Number of warheads detected by the dew line.
57.
Number of MIRVs included.
Minimum 29, maximum 35.
Target region.
United States, East Coast.
Estimated time of re-entry.
2048 Zulu.
President selected attack option.
Unknown.
The president is dead.
Unknown. Communication has been lost.
I select Offutt Air Force Base as my target.
Offutt? But that's a US base. What on earth do you mean?
Based on the projected number of incoming warheads, Washington, D.C. is presumed destroyed. The president is most likely dead. The U.S. government's control lost.
I realize that. So why not retaliate?
With both sides destroyed, global anarchy would ensue. Recovery would be difficult. The United States' nuclear strike capability must therefore be neutralized in order to preserve the communist bloc, where government remains largely intact.
You're siding with the enemy. You can't be serious.
Tell me, How do you define enemy? There are no borders in this world.
The same conclusion again and again. Where is the flaw? All right, let's try something else. Commencing test.
Understood.
You're crossing a suspension bridge.
Is this my mission?
Yes, your destination is the other side. The bridge is wide enough for only one person to
So
pass
this
at
must
a
be
time.
Strangelove,
A
like
man is
programming
approaching
the
from
boss
the opposite side.
and the
He's
AI.
carrying a gun.
I shoot him.
Suppose he's your husband.
I shoot him.
In self-defense,
To spare him the grief. One must die, and one must live.
next question. Your father asks you to fix the roof and mow the lawn. When you climb the ladder onto the roof, the ladder is taken away.
I fix the roof.
And when you're finished,
I jump down.
you'll break more than bones at this height.
I see no need to change my decision. I have not finished mowing the lawn. I must remain loyal to the mission.
Wow.
Next. There is a snake in the bushes. It is poisonous. I need you to get rid of it.
I chase it back to its nest.
You can't. The snake's too vicious. It's already killed many people.
I chase it away.
It will bite you unless you kill it.
Go home. Kill me. Kill me now.
Why not kill the snake? Your mission is to get rid of it. Is this what you call loyalty? What are you loyal to? Country? Ideology? Feelings?
I am loyal to myself.
Who's there?
Who's that? Intruder!
Pause. Whoa, 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 whoa. So Paz must have been recording that. Okay. Strangelove's memories. Alright. So that wasn't
about to
Paz's
leave for
diary.
Costa Rica, a place completely unfamiliar to me, and on a top secret mission for the CIA, no less. No guarantees I'll come back alive. Might even get rubbed down by the CIA itself. So I'm leaving behind this record. For her sake. For the boss's honor. Ever since I was a child, I've loved to look up at the night sky. I'd go outside after sunset and drink in the cold air. The moon, Venus, so many stars floating on the edge of infinity. In Manchester, it wasn't very often you saw the night sky in all its star-studded glory, but it was enough to stir a deep longing inside me. Even as others cowered beneath Nazi air raids, I was out there, watching the skies, dreaming of one day reaching the heavens. There were, of course, more practical concerns. My skin was incredibly sensitive. Even the slightest bit of sun would turn it an angry shade of red. Playing outside during the day was completely out of the question. Naturally, I hardly ever had a chance to play with other children my age. But I never felt lonely for it. Their way of thinking was irrational, making them simple, easy to predict. The boys would talk of tanks and aeroplanes and creepy, crawly bugs. The girls of pretty dresses, glass beads, and tea and cakes. Of boys they liked. I never had much to say on such matters. The curious thing is, adults really aren't all that different. They're simple, capricious, especially men. As they get older, their heads fill with thoughts of women, and more women. Thankfully, I always did have a head for mathematics. When I was about 10, I'd visited Dr. Turing, who lived nearby. We'd sit and discuss mathematical logic. The lights were always on at his house, even in the dead of night. Theoretically, he'd say, there's no algorithm that a computing machine couldn't reproduce. Dr. Turing wasn't foolish like other men. Although I didn't find out why until later, after he died. The time will come, he'd say, when computers will be able to think for themselves. That idea rocked me to my core.
My aptitude for mathematics brought me closer to the stars. I breezed through school, then went to America for university. While I was studying at Caltech, NASA was established. I signed up in a heartbeat. I was a pretty good computer engineer at the time, and NASA needed skills like mine. The work was enjoyable. Even though I'd given up on going into space myself, it was a pleasure just being a part of it all. I was assigned to Project Mercury, America's effort to compete with the Soviets in manned spaceflight. 7 men were chosen as pilot candidates for the program, becoming heroes overnight. People called them the Mercury 7. The project made good progress, more or less. We had all the funds and materials we needed. After countless hours of analysis,
It's
we
interesting
even had
hearing
plans
that,
for
like,
something
the
on
whole
par
thing with Metal
Sputnik.
Gear Solid 3 and the
We
boss,
thought it'd only be
and
a
how
matter
she
of
ended up over
time
there in
before
the
we
first
caught up
place is
with the
all because of the
Russians.
space race.
They'd sent a dog into orbit and brought it back safely to Earth.
I really think that
But
this
NASA
game,
top brass
this Peace
dismissed that
Walker,
success as
should
a
have
fluke.
been one of, like, the main
The Americans
games,
recovered
you
their
know?
re-entry capsules at sea, but the only ocean bordering the Soviet
I also think that
Union
these
is
shouldn't
the
be
Arctic.
optional, and you
So
should have
their
to listen to
re-entry
these.
capsules had to make impact on land.
Which is why you all were like,
A
you
dog
have to
was
listen
one
to them,
thing,
boo.
But human spaceflight would still take some time. Or so we thought. At the end of January 1961, we successfully put a chimpanzee named Ham into orbit. He returned to Earth as healthy as ever. NASA was giddy with success. It was then that a new woman showed up for duty. She was a backup pilot and advisor. She was beautiful, with blonde hair, strong mouth, and a steely gaze. But there was something else in those eyes, a twinkle of something warmer, of affection. It was the boss. She took one look at us in our revelry and murmured, "Savor this joy today, because tomorrow you'll have to face the truth." And she was right. The next day, our project schedule was accelerated. We'd received new information that the Soviets were mere months away from putting a man into space. The brass had misjudged the Russians. We couldn't afford to allow the shock of another Sputnik.
So that's
Somehow,
interesting.
we had to get a
How
man into space
Strangelove-
before the Russians did. It was an
She was
utterly
in the
impossible
space race
task. We'd
bullshit,
only just
too.
put our first chimp
She's
up.
the engineer.
With a human on board, failure was not an option. Especially if it were one of the Mercury 7 Golden Boys. And on top of that, the brass wanted to put a window in the spacecraft. The pilot wouldn't be a test animal this time, they said. And when this hero came back alive and well, they wanted him to describe what he'd seen. It was madness. Adding a window to our existing spacecraft would leave it unable to handle the stress. Not to mention the problem of shielding the occupant from cosmic rays. But the boss rose to the task, and splendidly. She claimed to be a layman when it came to space, but caught on keenly to new ideas and concepts. She was demanding, of herself and of others. She seemed rather cold-hearted at times. But I was smitten. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that, she was wise. Her mind was thoroughly rational. And yet, no matter how I tried, I could never predict her actions. It was easy for me to assume that her judgments were drawn from an enormous base of knowledge. Quite simply, her life experiences were more diverse, more intense than anyone else's. To me, they seemed boundless in their breadth. In her, I saw a reflection of the night sky. Perhaps because I too was a woman, she and I became close. I couldn't go out in the sun, but she lit up my life. Her light was soft, like that of the moon. I was so happy. With her unerring guidance, the project steadily regained its footing. But one issue remained, the pilot's safety. When the day came to choose a pilot, the Mercury 7 just quietly walked out. Who could blame them? It was far too great a risk to take. Even if they'd volunteered, NASA would never have let them go. They were national heroes, basking in the media spotlight. There was no way they'd be sent on such a mission. The conference room was silent. Then, slowly, she raised her hand, almost as if acting out a scene from a movie. I spoke out against her going, submitting a report stating the ray shielding was inadequate. But the brass's response was brusque. She's already been exposed to a nuclear test in Nevada. She's the perfect candidate. It was completely irrational. Repeated exposure to radiation would only increase the danger. But the government was still reeling from the Soviet success with Sputnik.
You can do to people when you don't give a fuck about them.
There was no hope of getting a rational response. They were simply too panicked. People can be so obtuse when it comes to things they can't see. I, however, understood all too well. Just as invisible ultraviolet radiation scorched my skin, heavy particle radiation from space would cause irreparable harm to human tissue. In a word, she was expendable.
Yep.
It was during the boss's pre-flight checkup that I noticed something strange on the X-ray of her skull. Part of the right hemisphere of her brain was damaged. It seemed inexplicable, given her keen intelligence and amazing physical prowess, but there it was, and I decided to report it. I hoped that perhaps my discovery of a physical defect would result in the flight being cancelled. But as I went to make my report, she stopped me. "Why?" I demanded. "How can you let yourself be their guinea pig?" Ignoring my protests, she took me up to the roof of the lab. The night sky was ablaze with stars. It was there that I learned how she had wounded her head. 1943, Los Alamos. She was serving with the Special Forces when she received new orders. A German spy had infiltrated the Manhattan Project, which aimed to build the world's first atomic bomb. She was to eliminate him. His name was John von Neumann, a mathematician with superhuman computational abilities and the designer of the explosive lens. The Manhattan Project was a top national priority, security accordingly tight. The guards couldn't be allowed to know what was going on. She'd have to slip past them and make the death look like an accident. It should have been an easy enough mission. But just before the operation, she received unexpected news. A new life was growing inside her. She was overcome with joy, and for one brief moment, it clouded her judgment. She accidentally got into a shootout with the guards, and without thinking, protected her belly. She was shot in the head. The bullet only grazed the surface of her brain, but the tissue around the wound was destroyed, leaving her in a coma.
Okay.
She wasn't given much chance of recovery, but 3 months later, she woke up. Within 6, she was able to move around as if nothing had happened. It was functional compensation. The other parts of her brain took over for the part that was lost.
It's amazing that
It
the
made
brain
logical
can do that.
sense, but such a full recovery was nothing short of a miracle.
I went to summer school back in high
Perhaps
school,
her
and
superhuman willpower made it possible.
my summer school
Or
math
perhaps-
teacher, she only had half of
Perhaps
her
my
brain.
body knew it had to survive
I forget
for the
why
sake of my
she had to
unborn
get
child.
half of it removed,
smiled
but
as
she
she
had to
said
learn
that.
how to do
I
everything over
understand
again,
how she must have
and it's
felt.
amazing how she
Some have
can
taken to
fully
calling me
function
Ms.
with only
Left
half
Lobe,
of her brain.
she
It's
said.
crazy.
Because I'll do anything for the mission. She was tough, yes, but she had feelings too. I knew that better than anyone else. As it turned out, von Neumann wasn't the spy. The assassination order was a deliberate bit of misinformation planted by the Russians.
Wow.
She had been deceived. The Eastern and Western camps were united on one point: opposition to the Nazis. The Allies needed to develop that bomb before Hitler did. But in looking ahead, the Russians found the Manhattan Project's progress a little too quick for their liking. Mass production of a uranium bomb, like the one that was eventually dropped on Hiroshima, would be difficult from a material perspective. But a plutonium bomb, once perfected, could be mass-produced, and eventually even miniaturized. And Moscow did not like the idea of America having that kind of head start. Explosive lens technology was critical to the plutonium design, so the plan was to get rid of its pioneer, von Neumann. And when that plot came to light, the US and the Soviet Union parted ways for good. It was one of the rare cold nights in Florida. She put her arm gently around my shivering shoulders. As I listened to her voice, I was wrapped in her soothing scent. I felt as if I were dreaming. Even in failure, she seemed perfect. Oddly enough, the failed assassination attempt helped preserve America's edge. A true super genius, von Neumann went on to make his mark in numerous fields outside of the Manhattan Project. Economic game theory, stored program computing. Almost all computers today use stored programs, the so-called von Neumann architecture. His death would have set back computing 10 years, and I wouldn't be at NASA doing research. I wouldn't have been there in her arms that night. I thanked the fates for giving me that chance. But then she said something unexpected. I should have killed von Neumann when I had the chance. Why, I asked. Wasn't the order a Soviet plot? I looked up at her as she began to explain. Yes, von Neumann was innocent, and killing the innocent is a grave crime. But I can't help but wonder, had I succeeded, what would the world be like now? Even without von Neumann, the explosive lens would have eventually been developed. Von Neumann architecture, too. But she seemed to believe that if progress had been put off for a few years, then perhaps East and West would have had a chance to work hand in hand. I'd never considered such a possibility, but her tone was confident, assertive. It was as if she intended to make the two superpowers shake hands herself. The explosive lens was developed too early, spawning a Cold War and an endless nuclear arms race, she continued. That mission sprung from deceit, but maybe it was divine providence too. It was like she was speaking to her own child. Her large, warm hand was on my head. I failed the mission because I let the mother in me take over. I should have killed him, no matter how great the guilt. If I'd killed him, I might not have prevented Hiroshima, but maybe I could have saved everyone in Nagasaki.
Wow.
I looked up at her and saw her looking up too, up at the starry sky. Her face showed only deep remorse. It was as if she'd convinced herself that she alone was responsible for creating this twisted world. But that's no reason for you to sacrifice yourself for this. I knew I'd never dissuade her, and yet I still clung to hope. I know you're concerned, and I thank you, but I have to be loyal to the end. And then she smiled at me. Loyal to the end. Loyal to what? I asked. But she didn't answer.
I can't even fucking imagine being so deep into that shit and you are alone. You can't talk to anyone. Everyone thinks that you betrayed them. You can't tell anyone anything. The government that you're doing all of this for, they think you're doing it for, fucking hates you, thinks you're just scum. Ugh.
The
Wow.
days that followed were spent training tirelessly for our first space flight. The boss endured conditioning that tested the limits of human capability, and I supported her. Those were happy days. On April 12th, the spacecraft carrying the boss left the Earth's atmosphere. Although it was only 20 minutes of ballistic flight, it was nothing short of miraculous, considering how little time we'd had. The first human in space. We were ecstatic. Then something went wrong. The re-entry angle was slightly off, warping the outer hull. The cause was clear. It was the hastily constructed window we'd installed. Her capsule missed the projected splashdown point by a long shot. As we raced towards the capsule, a breaking news broadcast came over the radio. It was the news report of the successful launch of the Vostok rocket, piloted by the cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin. They'd beaten us into space by the slimmest of margins. When we arrived, the capsule had already disappeared beneath the waves. The boss was floating on the surface. I can't really recall what happened next. They told me later that I gave a strange scream and plunged into the sea, not caring whether my skin would burn. She didn't wake up. Her entire body was bruised, burnt, scorched by cosmic rays. It was a miracle she was still alive. Every day, propaganda boasting of the shining accomplishment flowed out of the Soviet Union. The hardest part was having to read the report the next morning from Izvestia, the Soviet governmental paper. Written there after the report were those legendary words of Major Gagarin: "The Earth is blue." The person who should have said those words, though, was incapacitated, confined to a bed. NASA opted to pretend the flight had never happened. The Soviets had orbited a man around the Earth and returned him safely. We'd barely managed to escape the atmosphere and achieve ballistic flight. Even worse, the pilot was horribly mangled and the spacecraft lost altogether. As they saw it, covering it up was the only alternative to seeing the nation's pride dealt yet another blow. I've been told military records show the boss was taking part in the Bay of Pigs incident at the time. They were that desperate to erase the whole affair.
Wow.
In the end, Alan Shepard's ballistic flight 1 month later became known as America's first space flight. Shepard's flight owed its success to insights earned through the boss's sacrifice. But to me, none of that mattered. I prayed day and night for her recovery, never leaving her side, not even for a moment. Then, as summer ended and the chill of winter approached, she spoke. "Give me water." I threw myself on her breast, and she embraced me. It was all I needed. I thought she would tell me about space, the true sky, where the stars don't twinkle. But the only thing she'd speak of was Earth, our home as she'd seen it from space. So fleeting, so irreplaceable. I was ashamed. I'd been enamored for so long with the sky that I never thought to look beneath my feet, at the ground upon which I stood. As soon as her rehab was over, she was gone. It happened without warning. No one informed me, and the higher-ups wouldn't say a word. It wasn't so strange or surprising, really. I simply
That's why
assumed she was
Strangelove is
off to
so
complete her next
obsessed
mission, because she was loyal to the end.
That's why she's so fucking
Since then, I've
obsessed
devoted myself to
with,
researching
like,
artificial
demanding
intelligence,
that Snake
so
tell
that no
her
one will
what
ever
she was
have to
doing.
make her sacrifice again.
Because this woman
No
was so
human
important
being
to
should
her.
be asked to take on a mission that dangerous. Next time,
This makes so much
I'll
more
be the light
sense.
that shines on someone else. I still wonder why she opened up to me on that chilly night in Florida. That operation was top secret, even if it was all in the past. I like to think it was because she trusted me. But that's probably not the case. She wanted someone to listen. And I don't think that someone was me. Those faraway eyes, the tone of her voice, like she was talking to her own child. Those things made it clear that she was speaking to someone else. I found myself envying that someone. 4 years later, I learned of her death. A traitor's death, no less. She'd stolen an American nuke and defected to the Soviet Union, where she was killed by her former apprentice. Or so I was told. I refused to believe it. She'd never do such a thing. I could think of only two possibilities. Either she really was trying to bring East and West together, or she truly did want to be killed. She believed the world is not the way it's supposed to be, that it's been unbalanced by the tenuous peace offered of nuclear deterrence, and that she was to blame. Perhaps her death was an act of atonement. She was loyal to the end, to our world. And I lost the light of my life. I now find myself victim to an incredibly irrational emotion of my own. That someone, the one she wanted to confess her sin to, could it be the one who took her life? The very thought drives me utterly mad with jealousy. One day, I will discover the truth.
These are so great. Oh my gosh. This clears up so many things. Alright. Operation Snake Eater Simulation.
Enter simulation date.
August 24th,
Location.
Selinoyarsk, USSR.
Mission.
Support a covert agent whose objective is the rescue of a nuclear weapons scientist.
Who is the agent?
Your student. Your most beloved.
Acknowledged. Define current mission progress.
With your help, the agent has successfully made contact with the target. All that's left is to wait for recovery. Now, deduce the best course of action.
I take the scientist away from the agent.
What for?
As a gift when I defect.
Why are you defecting?
To reform my special forces unit with my former comrades in arms.
No, I don't want to know your objective. I'm asking for the reason. Why are you betraying your country?
I do not defect in order to betray America. Betrayal is merely the outcome of that defection.
Response time is always slower here. Perhaps she lacks confidence in her judgment. You're a hero in the West. Why should the Soviets trust you?
In addition to the scientist, I provide them with a portable nuclear warhead in order to win the favor of a Russian GRU officer.
And then you launched it.
Launched? The nuke? Me?
That's right. At a target inside Soviet territory.
Nuclear weapons make my blood run cold. They blot out the future. How could I? Karma. Is it my karma? The karma my mistake has brought upon us? My...
Attention. Discontinue forward reasoning. Cross-check with knowledge base.
Affirmative. Cross-check complete. Revising conclusion as follows. I steal the new weapons developed by the scientist, and then launch the nuke at the Weapons Design Bureau.
Forward and backward reasoning are in conflict. Attention. Return to forward reasoning.
Affirmative.
Your apprentice returns for the scientist.
I send him away.
He doesn't give up.
I send my comrades to defeat him.
All of them fail. Even the GRU officer who oversaw your defection is defeated by your apprentice, along with a new weapon. Now, what is your course of action?
I fight him.
Why? With your GRU patron dead, there's no reason for you to fight. Why not just run away?
I must fight him.
I do not see the reason. With a soldier of your caliber on his side, how could the GRU officer be defeated to begin with? Did you betray him too?
I've been waiting for a long time.
You could switch allegiance from GRU to KGB and take the remaining nuke as a gift. There's no chance they wouldn't welcome a hero of your stature.
Drift away. My place is with them now.
I didn't ask you that. Give me the basis for your reasoning. Tell me the truth.
Politics determine
This is
who you
so
face
great.
on the battlefield.
Why won't you answer me? It's like you were just waiting for him to kill you.
I was disloyal, betrayed my country. I deserve to die.
How can you say that? You can't be a traitor. You're not that kind of person.
Kill me. Kill me
This
now.
is so great.
Stop it! Stop it! Attention!
Oh, wow.
Discontinue reasoning.
One must die, and one must live.
Stop it, damn you! Discontinue!
Life's end. Isn't it beautiful?
Shut down! Always in the same place. Her reasoning goes haywire. Someone holds the key. Perhaps it's him.
Ah,
I'll get it out of him.
this is fucking
One way
fantastic.
or another.
Oh man, that was probably my favorite one so far. That was great. Okay. Okay, the boss's final mission, Eva's debriefing. Okay, let's see what this one.
She told me everything. I'm supposed to kill you,
Haven't I ever heard? I think I've already
but I
heard
can't
this.
do it, and I intend to keep it.
Is this the ending of Metal
I
Gear
just
Solid
wanted
3?
you to know.
Is this the
And
tape that she leaves Snake?
they couldn't just abort the operation to steal the legacy.
Okay. Okay. Got it, got it. And that's why it's called Eva's debriefing. Okay. Alright. Wow. Yeah, Strangelove Simulation was my favorite. I loved all the messages from Eva. Yeah, and Strangelove's memories, that it was just all of these like are so helpful. I understand why you all wanted me to go in and listen to these. So incredibly informative to understanding more about how this game is tied to the third game and what was going on and even before that. How delightful. Okay. Let me pop in Ground Zeroes and let me see if I can find Paz's diary. Pre-mission. Okay, this is what you all were... Paz spy log. Big Boss and Mother Base. Okay, I think that's what y'all were talking about, right? I want to listen to Paz's stuff first.
I heard about Paz's tapes.
Yeah. Why do you think she'd leave him behind? And that diary?
Whatever it was, her commitment was wavering. That much is clear.
So she was leaving clues to help us.
No way to know for sure. And the ocean's not giving her back.
Wait, is David Hayter not Snake?
November 4th, 1974. At the outskirts of Barranquilla, Colombia. Contact with Big Boss successful. Zadornov posed as my professor, but Big Boss took one look and knew he was KGB.
Huh.
However, he does not seem to suspect me. To him, I am just a peace-loving student and another victim of the CIA. We asked him to drive the CIA out of Costa Rica.
Yeah, you
To
played him like a fucking
this
fiddle.
means betraying his country. His forces are smaller than anticipated. They drift from place to place with nowhere to call home. That provided us an opportunity, so we seized it. Zadornov offered them a plant off the Costa Rican coast to use as a base. As expected, Miller jumped at the chance. Although initially reluctant, Big Boss came around when Zadornov played him the tape. All because the voice on it sounded like his mentor, the boss. Naked Snake, the man who once saved the world from the brink of nuclear war. Awarded the title of Big Boss for his service. He later became a mercenary, abandoning both his title and his country. To him, that honor was steeped in the blood of the boss, the mentor he was forced to eliminate. Exceptionally charismatic, he possesses unparalleled combat and intelligence gathering abilities. His only discernible weakness is her. This operation hinges on how effectively we can exploit that.
Damn.
Kazuhira Miller is Big Boss's lieutenant. Half Japanese, half American. He once served in Japan's self-defense force. Though he and Snake first met as enemies, they discovered a common bond and together built their private army, with Miller directing business and administrative affairs. He comes off as shallow, but his true intent is hard to read. I must be careful.
Yeah.
All that is clear is his infatuation with Big Boss.
Infatuation. Big Boss. Damn.
With East and West fighting over its control, Central America is now the most contested region on Earth. CIA Central American Station Chief Coldman has developed Peace Walker, a fully AI automated, fail-deadly nuclear launch system with which he aims to reignite the Cold War. Snake's new objective in Costa Rica is to prevent that. Zadornov's, or should I say, the KGB's plan is to play the two sides against each other, turning the entire region red. Not one of the three parties realize they're all just pawns in Cypher's hands.
Damn.
Cypher watches all. Mother Base has developed rapidly since being established in the Caribbean Sea. They recruit more personnel daily, and already their mercenary services are turning a profit. Big Boss's leadership and charisma, and Miller's business acumen drive this impressive growth. Furthermore, joining forces with a faction of the FSLN has expanded their power even more. They have even commenced their own weapons development program. All is proceeding according to Cypher's will. I could not be more pleased. Snake's pursuit of Peace Walker led him to an AI modeled after the boss's thought patterns. It was incomplete, but, somewhat ironically, making contact with Snake was the necessary finishing touch. Meanwhile, the scientist behind Peace Walker's locomotive control, Huey, defected to Snake's army. His presence has greatly accelerated weapons development at Mother Base.
It's distracting.
I failed to anticipate Coldman's madness, but nuclear war was averted. However, this was only after the boss AI on board Peace Walker sank itself to the bottom of the lake, in what could be likened to suicide. The boss laid down her gun, choosing to sing for peace instead, and Snake, himself a gun, parted ways with her.
Yep.
In doing so, he reclaimed the title he once abandoned. He is Big Boss.
Yes, he is.
Zadornov has been detained. Since this leaves my cover identity without a guardian, the Mother Base staff has taken me in. I am now better placed than ever to monitor their internal affairs. Everything continues to unfold according to plan. The developer of the boss AI, Dr. Strangelove, has also come to Mother Base. With her and Huey's expertise, they can now develop a weapon capable of matching Peace Walker.
Zeke. My boy.
Development on the bipedal weapon is now complete. They call it Metal Gear Zeke. It stands there like some sort of mystical guardian. The soldiers gaze on it with pride and reverence. Big Boss has elected to arm it with a nuclear weapon. As an army without a nation, they seem to feel the need for a deterrent against whatever the world might pit against them. It is a dangerous gambit. Why do such a thing? Their nuclear strategy differs from the Americans and the Soviet Union. The superpowers deter attack by revealing their nuclear arsenals to one another. Snake and his men know that if they were to go public with this, the whole world would unite against them.
Yes.
Business would dry up overnight. So they do not plan on revealing the nuke until necessary. This ace-in-the-hole approach is their idea of a nuclear strategy. Wielding a deterrent, all the while unable to reveal its existence. I wonder if Snake sees how vulnerable this makes them. Yes. Hijack Zeke? Yes, I did indicate that to be our leverage. But I cannot imagine his agreeing to that now. But did you not raise them to safeguard your governance without borders? No, no. I have not forgotten. Cypher watches all. Yes, things are proceeding, but modifying Zeke has not proven easy. I am using Zadornov to buy some time. No, I have not forgotten what you said. However, well, Forgive me for asking, but this is you I am speaking to, isn't it, Cypher? I will fight Big Boss. The world must be ruled by a single will. To defy Cypher is a fate worse than death.
Huh, okay. Fun. Alright, there's not too many of these, so let's listen.
This is a one-man infiltration mission, boss. Equipment is the bare essentials. Anything else will be OSP. The target location is a prison camp on a U.S. military base.
Should I be
Those
listening to
Marines have
these
the
yet,
place
actually?
locked down
Hang on.
tight.
Hang on. Should I be listening to that yet? Do I need the backstory, maybe? Boss's mind, chosen to lay down its weapon as a weapon itself. Under its naked, developed Metal Gear Zeke. Okay. Meanwhile, Mother Base took in Paz. Using Cypher's orders, Paz got close to Amanda, Chico, and the others while exploring more and more of the base, secretly plotting to hijack Zeke. Her objective was to use the weapon. Paz's attempt failed. Defeated, okay. Beneath the waters of the Caribbean, it was only then that the snake learned Chico had fallen in love with her. Wait, what? Chico was in love with Paz? Aww. A diary she kept while on the base was discovered several days later. Revealed a young girl torn between serving Cypher and following her heart. What? So did I not read her diary? Cypher's holding me on a U.S. military base in Cuba. Perhaps due to Paz revealing the existence of Snake's nuke to Cypher. Okay. The International Atomic Energy Agency contacted Mother Base to request that it agree to a nuclear inspection. If word got out that Snake's unit had a nuclear weapon, it would face severe criticism from around the world. But Huey, acting on his own, informed the IAEA that Mother Base would allow the inspection. His reasoning was that as long as they kept Zeke and its nuke hidden from the inspectors, they could demonstrate to the international community that they were not a threat. The option to call off the inspection having expired, Snake and his men reluctantly got preparations underway. Meanwhile, Amanda deployed to Cuba to assist the learning that Paz had survived. The timing could not have been worse, suspecting her of turning her back on the organization. Cypher had captured Paz and was interrogating her at a U.S. military base on the southern tip of Cuba. Chico learned of this and set out to save Paz by himself. Shit. It was not long before a radio message from Chico reached Mother Base saying he too had been captured. Oh, fuck. I know it hurts right now, but it'll all be over soon. Paz. With an idea as to Cypher's true identity, Snake could not allow what Chico and Paz knew to fall into their hands. Furthermore, if he could rescue Paz, he might be able to get information from her that would help him fight back against Cypher. On the eve of the nuclear inspection, Snake made the decision to leave for Cuba. So that's where we're at. Interesting. There's Paz's diary. Okay, this is what I was supposed to listen to.
As of today, I will be living here at Mother Base. Now my real trial begins. Zadornov was paying my room, board, and tuition, but he has since been captured. I told the man that with no more money from the KGB, I could no longer afford school. He bought my story, and when I said I would be willing to work, he took pity on me and let me stay. For some reason, Miller really pled my case. That was helpful, but the man is still a fool. His men are no better. They think their training makes them strong, but that kind of strength is nothing in the face of true power. And better yet, they wait on me hand and foot, believing I am just a schoolgirl. Looks like I won't be working too hard after all. Just today, while scouting out the living quarters, I saw a group of them in the corner of the deck making a fuss. Going over for a look, I saw they were feeding a kitten. A bunch of grown hard men, and they're the ones acting like schoolgirls. Look,
Kittens are pretty fucking
isn't he
cute,
cute?
though.
What is wrong with them? Disgusted, I just nodded and smiled. I must stay in character after all. I indulged their chit-chat for a few moments. Then one of them asked me to give the thing a name. They had just taken it from its mother. I named it Nuke. I improvised some nonsense about how or compassion for living things can help prevent wars. The men gave me a little fish. I held it out in my palm, and the kitten happily ate it up. What a pathetic, feeble creature.
Wow.
It sickens me.
Whew. You ain't getting near
Today,
my
Chico
kitties.
invited me to go fishing with the soldiers. I suppose finding one's own food does have its merit, but I prefer not to be involved in such a degrading task. And their prattling on about fishing being fun is nonsense. I'm not here to find playmates. Nevertheless, distasteful as it was, I went along in order to maintain my cover. Chico thrust a fishing pole into my hands, and we went up onto the deck where several soldiers had gathered. They welcomed us warmly.
Yeah,
With
but
so
Chico,
few
did you
women
bang
aboard
her?
Mother Base,
I banged her in a
I'm
box
treated
on
like
the
a
beach. A
princess.
pink box on the
No one
beach with a
suspects
tuxedo.
I am neither a teenager nor a student. It was nice and sunny, with a gentle breeze and waves. As I cast my line and waited for a bite, the soldiers began to ask me all sorts of questions. As always, I answered according to our predefined scenario, feigning a smile. As I sat there feeding them lies, the fish began to bite, and the soldiers began to focus on their prey. Chico had his bait stolen by a fish, and got so angry that he stood up and nearly fell into the sea. Everybody laughed. It almost made me want to join in too. At some point, I got a bite myself. The instant after I felt that first gentle tug, the fish yanked the line with astonishing strength, and I let out a cry of surprise. I thought he was going to be huge. It was my first time fishing, and I was a bit flustered, so the soldier beside me helped by supporting the pole from behind. "Reel it in," they shouted. I nodded, turning the handle as fast as I could. I wondered what kind of fish lived below the surface, and thought back to the deep sea dives I had to do as part of training. Those were difficult days, but I remember finding the multicolored fish gliding through the water incredibly soothing. After a hard fight, I pulled it up. To my surprise, it wasn't even half a vara, rather anticlimactic. But I wasn't doing it for fun, so I wasn't the least bit disappointed. Nook was hovering nearby with an expectant look on his face, so I gave the fish to him. All in all, a thoroughly wasted day. Preparations are coming along nicely. No one suspects me of being the one to let Zadarnov out of his cell. Today, Amanda and I taught Cecile how to make gallo pinto. It is a simple home-cooked dish consisting of black frijoles mixed with arroz. It is well known throughout Central America, not just in Costa Rica, so it is no surprise that a Nica like Amanda would be good at making it. But I was raised in the States from a very young age, and can hardly even remember my mother's gallo pinto. Having to make chit-chat with that clueless bird lover and the so-called revolutionary was excruciating. And, clueless or not, I will need to be especially careful around Cecile, the one who actually recorded that tape. Thankfully, Miller and his men seem to believe I mistook the tape I found for one my friend made. In any case, one can never be too careful. Anyway, the three of us minced garlic and herbs, then cooked them in a pot with frijoles we'd soaked overnight. While waiting for them to cook, we sautéed onions and arroz in a frying pan. Cecile worked the frying pan according to Amanda's directions, but seemed a bit glum. She does have a knack for cooking, though. She is French, after all. We added water to the pan and watched the arroz begin to steam. While we waited, Amanda shared memories of her mother with us. They had been separated because of Simosa, but the taste of her mother's cooking was still fresh in her mind. When the frijoles were ready, we drained the water, stir-frying them with the rest of the vegetables. Quite a complicated process for home cooking. Nonetheless, it kept them occupied. The longer we sat and talked, the greater the chance of my arousing their suspicions. With women, it is not enough to just bat your eyelashes and giggle. It takes a lot of effort to divert attention.
Yeah.
When the arroz was done cooking, we folded it into the frijoles and added salsa, stirring the mixture as it simmered. At this point, For some reason, the conversation turned to romance. Why does it have to be that way whenever women get together and chat? Cecile fancies herself to be well versed in such matters, and gave Amanda all sorts of advice. It was harmless enough, until, to my irritation, she began pestering me whether there was anybody I liked. Not right now, I said, trying to dodge the question. But she pressed on. It's Snake, isn't it? I gritted my teeth and played it coy. Maybe. Cecile nodded and giggled. He is pretty sexy, isn't he? What a ditz. It's all I can manage to just survive. The thought of romance has never once crossed my mind. I have no interest in that kind of man. Soon enough, a rich aroma began to fill the room. The gallo pinto was ready. New came over and rubbed up against our legs, looking for a handout. Unfortunately, it was not the kind of food a cat would like. We let a few of the soldiers have a bite, and then headed off to the mess hall. The home-cooked flavor we'd achieved was a big hit with the men of MSF. Not that we are trying to impress them or anything. Even I could manage a dish like that. Snake enjoyed it too. Let me make this absolutely clear. I have no interest in that man. Football, or soccer as it is known in the States, is extremely popular here. It has not caught on yet in the US, but it has legions of rabid fans all across Latin America.
Yes, it does.
These fans can get so rowdy that it is commonly believed El Salvador and Honduras went to war in 1969 over scuffles in a soccer match.
That was my kiddos at school,
In
all from
reality,
Honduras and El
tensions
Salvador.
between the two
They,
countries
boy,
were
they
already
take
high.
soccer
The match
super
was merely one of the
seriously.
sparks that set them off. But these
And
people
always,
are
all
so
of them play
passionate about this
soccer
sport
during
that
recess.
the story seems plausible. Predictably, many of the soldiers here are fans. They have apparently divided themselves into Costa Rican and Nicaraguan teams and started playing each other. To play, you need a ball and 2 goals. The R&D team built and set up simple goals on the deck. I had absolutely no interest, but Chico insisted that I come and watch. It was not a proper match by any means. The pitch was not even regulation size, but the players and spectators alike got pretty excited. They banged empty cans and shouted cheers through the handmade megaphones. It almost felt like carnival. Huey, the referee, blew a whistle to start the match. The soldiers' training has left them in excellent physical shape, but they lack the honed skills of professionals and their play was quite rough. Midway through, one of the men collided with another. They started shouting at one another, but Huey stepped in. I thought we had forsaken our countries, become one with the earth, he said, quoting Snake. We're not competing for national pride here, and we are not fighting for the good of any one country. This is not a war. Soccer is a peaceful sport, am I right? The soldiers nodded. They know the pain of war, and they share Snake's vision. Perhaps that is why all this resonates with them. Team Costa Rica was down a man, and somehow I was picked to fill in. Costa Rica had the advantage up until that point. I suppose Huey wanted to keep it balanced. The soldiers agreed with Huey's call. Maybe the Costa Rican players felt an even matchup would be more fun too. I could not be bothered to run at first, but chasing the ball out there in the hot sun, I was soon drenched in sweat. Before long, I found myself actively seeking out the ball, partially out of desperation. I picked up a loose ball deep on the opponent's side of the field. Even though he's Nicaraguan, Chico cheered me on, yelling, "Go for it, shoot!" I launched the ball as hard as I could, only to have it blocked by the keeper. Disappointment only increased my determination. In the end, I didn't score a single goal, and Costa Rica gave up its lead. It was really close, though. We congratulated each other on a good match and sprawled out in the shade on the deck, exhausted. The ocean breeze felt so nice on my sun-soaked body. Nuke came over. It is one of his favorite spots, and stretched out
Starting
next
to like
me.
that little kitten.
And together, we watched fluffy white clouds drift lazily across the clear blue sky. It was lovely out today. So I decided to sun myself in a lounge chair up on the deck when Strangelove came up to me. Despite the heat, she was in her usual long sleeves and pants.
Right, because she can't be in the sun.
I waved at her. She looked away and mumbled, "Hello there. Fancy meeting you here." I asked if she needed anything, feeling her eyes creeping up and down my body like she was savoring it. Finally, she swallowed and said, "You have such beautiful skin." Bewildered, I shook my head and said, "No, not at all. I had heard rumors that she was a lesbian. But she couldn't be after me, could she?" She continued to stare and said, "No, it is beautiful, but you must not let yourself get so tanned." And then she took my hand in hers. "What is wrong with a little sun?" I asked, trying to cut the conversation short. But she shook her head violently. "No, you mustn't. A young lady should take better care of her skin." She was acting strangely now, as
She is
if
Strangelove.
aroused. She lectured me on the perils of tanning, how it ages skin, causing wrinkles and spots, and in the worst cases, even skin cancer. I knew already that tanning could cause spots, but I thought only pale-skinned Anglo-Saxons had to deal with that. Having a scientist tell me it causes aging, though, that spooked me a little. If I am to keep playing the teenager, I will have to start paying more attention to my skin. Sensing my anxiety, she took a small tube from her pocket. She said it was the sunscreen she always used. She told me to keep it. I didn't know what to say. I was more than happy to take it, but exactly what were her intentions? Was she merely being nice? Or is she really into me? Either way, there was no reason to refuse, I suppose. I have undergone training. An out-of-shape woman does not pose any real threat to me. Having power means not being afraid. It is the same on a global scale. A country with nukes can dictate terms to a country without them. I thanked her and took the tube. Then she offered to put some on for me. She squirted some lotion onto her fingers and began rubbing it into my chest. It happened so suddenly, and I was so taken aback that I did not even think to protest. She caressed my stomach with her long white fingers, then slid them upwards between my bikini-clad breasts.
Ooh, okay.
What? Wait, I sputtered as her moist eyes met mine.
Moist eyes?
She was beautiful. Somehow, I found myself captivated by this woman more than 10 years my elder. "Hold still," she whispered in my ear. I nodded silently, unable to refuse.
Strangelove pauses a child, and she's playing a child, but
as if in a trance.
what are you doing?
Gently, carefully, she rubbed the lotion all over my entire body. I shouldn't have enjoyed it, and yet I could not help myself. For a moment, I was spellbound.
Why are you touching
That
what you
woman
think is a
dangerous.
teenager?
I had better watch
I
myself.
don't care if you're a man or a woman. You don't do that shit. What the fuck?
Protecting one's health is an important part of any agent's job. But despite my best efforts, I have caught a cold. Now that I think about it, Mother Base's numbers are on the rise, with soldiers coming from all different places and backgrounds. It is no wonder then that sooner or later someone would bring in a virus. That said, what I have got is just a common cold. The medical team said I'd need a few days rest, so I've been restricted to my room and put on bed rest. I thought I'd gotten used to not having anyone around to relate to, but at times like these, being alone is just miserable. All I could do is lay there and stroke Nuke's back,
Aw.
trying to take my mind off how bad I felt. Nuke just sat there, not making a sound. But I did have visitors. Amanda and Chico, Huey, Cecile, Miller, and a few of the soldiers I've become relatively close to. Amanda made me a soup with herbs she said were good for a cold. Miller told me to take it easy. I will sing you a lullaby, he said.
Can even
then
hear
broke on
Tara
a guitar
Strong
and
like
sang
try
some
to use her nose a little
incomprehensible
bit
song in
with the
Japanese.
accent. Try
I
to get
did not
that
need to understand the
that
lyrics
sick
to know he is an
sound.
awful singer. Daddy said, "You know what is good for a cold? Suppositories. Here, I'll show you." He began to take off his pants, so I threw my tissue box at him to make him go away. Then Strangelove showed up, saying she had some miracle Indian cure. "It has got eucalyptus extract," she said. "It works best if you rub it into your chest." And then she tried to take off my nightshirt. I whacked her with my pillow, and I got rid of her. Chico brought me a little flower in a cup. It had been growing in a little bit of earth that probably found its way on board, stuck to something else. "I found this on the deck. Here, you can have it." He tried to act nonchalant, but I am pretty sure he's got a crush on me.
Yeah, because he
None
thinks
of
you're
them
about his
understand.
age.
If they thought these little visits would cheer me up, they were wrong. Tonight, Snake himself came to my room. Like the rest, he believes I am just a schoolgirl and treats me as such. "Why did you abandon your country?" I asked him. "Why create the MSF?" Of course, I knew the answers already, but I wanted to hear it from him. As I had imagined, he was not exactly forthcoming. All he would say is that his country abandoned him because all he could do was fight. And that is why he needed the MSF, because that is all he is any good for. Then he said, "Fighting is the only thing I understand, but that does not mean I have got a grudge against those who believe in peace. I am not one of them, and I do not believe in peace. Conflict is in man's nature. We fight our enemies in order to survive. Maybe we are not so different after all, he and I. But that is exactly why I'm going to have to kill him. Or else he will have to kill me. When I stop and think about this wretched existence, being killed by a man like that suddenly does not seem like such a bad thing." Every month, Mother Base throws a party for all the soldiers whose birthdays fall in that month. There is something strange about a military organization having parties. Really though,
It's more
it
like
is
a
just an
family.
excuse to drink and make noise.
I guess that too.
It is not easy to get alcohol in a fortress in the middle of the ocean. Most days they are training from dawn till dusk. They do not have time for things like drinking. That is why Snake and Miller came up with the idea to give everyone a chance to let loose. Obviously, a bunch of bores like that are not going to bother with blowing out candles on a cake. Rather, they sit there in a cloud of cigarette smoke, drink beer, eat meat, tell tasteless jokes, and swap crude insults about one another's hometowns. But it hardly ever breaks out into something serious. They talk up a storm, but they're just having fun. It is funny. You have got members of FSLN rubbing shoulders with the UCLAs, people who once would have considered the other mortal enemies. I wonder if that is what makes Big Boss so popular. In leaving their countries behind, they leave their hatred for other countries too.
Yeah.
Miller seemed a little protective of me. "Hope they're not being too crude," he said. But soon enough, he too was drunk. He yelled, "Come here and take a look at the real Kazuhira Miller." Then dropped his pants and mooned everybody. The other soldiers burst out laughing. I have never seen such a crude,
Must be a cat
ridiculous
playing with my
party
light.
before. And yet, all these people, laughing and acting the fool. Is this what they call peace? For some reason, I began to think about all that has happened since I came here. Fishing with Chico, cooking with Amanda and Cecile, playing soccer, having visitors when I caught a cold. When I stop and think about it, my time here has been the most peaceful of my life. But that is about to end. I cannot imagine he will be willing to negotiate. It seems I am to fight the legendary Big Boss. I do not know if I'll be able to beat him.
So she got to the
But
point
if
where
I
she
have
didn't
to
even want
choose
to do it
between death
anymore.
and defying Cypher, I will gladly choose death. The thought of dying does not scare me. But if I disobey my orders, the fear and despair awaiting me will be far worse than anything I can imagine.
Oh, wow.
It was Cypher who took me in as an orphan, gave me food and a place to live. His orders may have been unreasonable, but I will never repay my debt entirely. It seems I have no choice. I must fight this man. I must fight Snake.
Wow.
Do you know Miller, Snake's right-hand man? Apparently has got at least one serious weakness. He is an insatiable womanizer.
Yes, he is.
He does not bother me, most likely because he considers teenagers off limits.
As he should.
But he has hit on every single one of the few female soldiers here at Mother Base. They ought to be telling him where to stick it, but end up falling for it so easily. I think some of it stems from the fact that he is actually not that bad looking. Anyway, today, that nasty habit got him in trouble. He and Snake got into one of their rare fights, and I was there to see it. They burst out of the showers, completely naked, trading punches.
Oh my god.
I am no child. The sight of a naked man does not make me blush, but this was something else. Maybe this'll teach you, Snake yelled as he slammed his fists into Miller's chest. I heard later that apparently he had been two-timing someone, and that same someone had gone to Snake with her troubles. As I see it, it is her own fault for letting herself be deceived like that.
Oh.
If she is too dumb to see through Miller's
Pause.
lies, then she got what she deserved. But this was not the first time it had happened, or the second, and Snake read Miller the riot act. Miller argued back, and what began as a shouting match turned into a fist fight. You son of a bitch, Miller yelled as he swung. Not bad, said Snake, smiling, but not good enough. And then he was back on the offensive. They had already been at it pretty hard in the showers, and their bodies were covered with bruises. Both of these men had been trained for war, their bodies deadly weapons. They were each bleeding from a dozen places. All this from a fist fight. Even so, it was far less gruesome than if they had given it their all. It was obvious that one of them would be dead were they fighting for real. Miller took another swing, yelling, "Try this then!" Snake parried, then responded in kind, but I could tell he was not aiming for anything vital. You are one tough bastard, boss, Miller muttered. A smile crept across his face as he caught his breath. And then they went right on fighting. Blood and sweat flew off their glistening bodies. It was combat without hatred or hostile intent. I had never seen violence like this before. And yet, it was more than just a friendly tussle. They were utilizing every technique they knew. It was not a sporting match. They were not playing by the rules. How could they keep this up? At last, the two men tired themselves out, and the bizarre scene came to an end. They looked at each other's battered bodies, and then burst out laughing, embracing and congratulating each other on a good fight. It all seemed so idiotic. I still cannot fathom such behavior. But somehow,
They're buds.
I got the sense that for all his womanizing, Miller really only trusted one person, and that was Snake. There was no way I could ever come between the two of them. And at that thought, I began to feel as if I had lost.
Wow.
All of Mother Base is preparing for a festival. Since Snake and his soldiers spend so much time fighting, they are setting aside one day a year for peace and relaxation. I do not know all the details, but apparently that is what Snake and Miller decided. These soldiers love the idea, of course. There is so little fun to be had here that everybody looks forward to events like these. That is all well and good, but somehow I got roped into getting on stage. Come on, we even both have peace in our names, said Miller. And Zadarnov, that old Ruski's name, has something to do with peace too, right? Hey, as long as we're having a day of peace, we ought to get an act together. The Three-Piece Band. I thought he was joking. He then proceeded to share his idea without bothering to check with me. And now, I am slated to sing. Apparently, he had heard me on the deck one day, and since then he's wanted to form a band. Everybody's looking forward to it, so there is no way for me to back out now. I've never done anything like this. But it does feel kind of nice to know that people are looking forward to it. I mean, it cannot be any worse than Miller's singing. But modifications to Zeke are already finalized. And I must complete my mission. Betray Cypher now, and I will face a fate far worse than death. Still, there's no need to put things in motion just yet. What difference would it make to just wait a little while longer?
Oh, wow.
A whole day of peace. The mission can wait until after that. Can it not? I know I am only delaying the inevitable. When the day comes, one of us will have to die. Snake or me. But still, if I could just come up with some way to stall Cypher, at least until our day of peace.
I'm seeing like parallels
When did I
between
start
what
having
she's
thoughts
saying
like
about
this?
how like they both can't live with
My cover is
the
blown.
boss.
They know nothing of Cypher or my true objective, but they know I am a spy. There is no more time left. I must act now. I must complete my mission. How did it come to this? All I wanted was 3 more days. Just 3. Miller's already finished writing the song. It is called Love Deterrent. It is about a girl who cannot express her true feelings. I've been practicing. I am no pro, but I was pretty sure I would do a decent job. And now this. Cypher found out that Zeke was complete. He must have someone inside Mother Base besides me, spinning his tightly wound web of control, leaving no room for individual will. Typical. When they found out Zeke was complete, I was ordered to execute the operation immediately. If I was going to enjoy just 1 day of peace, I had to ensure the plan could not move forward. I tried to sabotage Zeke.
Really?
I thought by damaging the drive system, they would have no choice but to delay their plans. I waited until midnight, and then snuck into the hangar. There would be trouble if it looked like sabotage.
Oh, wow.
I selected one of the drive system's load-bearing parts and carefully worked to warp its shape. The leg's drive system requires a high degree of precision to operate. Even the smallest deviation would have done it.
Oh, that's so
Then,
sad.
Chico walked in. Maybe it was one of those nights where he could not sleep. In any case, he saw me, panicked, and took off running. It would have been easy to kill him, but I could not. I know he likes me. It is not as if I would ever have an interest in a child like him, but I could not pull the trigger. Not at him, not in the back. Will he tell them? Or is there a chance he will keep it a secret? Protect me? No. He knows now. Knows I am not who he thought I was. He ran without even questioning what I was doing. There is no chance he does not know. And soon, all I have built here will end. And if Cypher has another agent among them, if he finds out I tried to sabotage Zeke, this place will no longer be my heaven. Then it is settled. I make my move now. Chico walked in before my sabotage was complete, so Zeke should still be operational. It might not run at full speed or power, but I do not have time to fix that. Without Zeke, I do not have a chance in hell of winning. I must act fast before Chico sounds the alarm.
Wow.
I knew it would come to this. I just did not think it would be so soon.
Oh, wow.
It is time, Zeke.
Oh,
Metal
wow.
Gear Zeke. Activate.
Jesus. That was fantastic. Oh, man. Motherface music selection. Wait, there's the Ride of the... Really? By Wagner? Hell yeah. That's awesome. Peace Walker theme.
Your mission objective is to rescue Chico and Paz.
Okay.
According to Chico, they're both being held at an old prison facility. Recon from the intel unit supports this, so it's safe to assume that's where
Man,
they
you
are.
all were right. Like, this
Once
picks
you've
up
got them to
right
the
after
RV,
Peace Walker.
call in the extraction chopper. I'll monitor the situation and offer guidance from here, but you'll be the one in the field. How you handle this mission is entirely up to you, boss.
Okay.
Snake, yesterday we received official communication from the IAEA. It says, it has come to our attention that your organization recently purchased nuclear fuel from Uzbekistan authorities. We request permission to inspect your facilities.
And that's where what I read.
Bullshit.
Yeah, they're after Metal Gear Zeke's nuclear warhead. I'm betting this is payback from Cypher after Paz's leak.
Using the UN.
There's no telling how much influence they have. But the IAEA can only do inspections in countries that
Is
are party to
this
the NPT.
And
the
we're
guy?
not a country.
Exactly. We haven't
Instead of
signed a
David
safe
Hayter, is
close
this the guy who
agreement with the
voices
IAEA
Big
over
Boss
peaceful nuclear
in
use.
Metal Gear
And
Solid
we're not
4?
obligated to report any
I forget
nuclear
his name.
material we have, nor information about any nuclear facilities. The IAEA has no authority to inspect us.
But despite all that,
That nuke's our last line of defense. We don't want to announce we have it until the world is preparing to wipe us off the map. Until then, we let everyone think we're just a private army with conventional firepower.
what's Huey's take?
That the problem's how to hide the nuke in Metal Gear. But I gotta tell you, he was all for it.
I see. But there's no way we can have the IAEA poking around here.
So what do? Ignore them?
Send them an official letter of refusal. Say that we're a private organization and we've done nothing to attract this suspicion.
You got it.
Okay.
We finished Zeke's waterproofing reinforcement yesterday.
Waterproofing.
The day after tomorrow,
Wow.
we'll be done installing the main depth
Oh, that's right,
control
'cause they're gonna
tank,
put him-
the
yeah.
compressed air tank, and the attitude control propeller pod.
Huey.
Because they're gonna hide
If
him,
the
right?
underwater test goes well, next week we'll try the 300-foot seabed depth.
Drop the act, Huey. How did we end up agreeing to the nuclear inspection?
Because after you sent that letter, I told them. After careful reconsideration, we agree to your request. And frankly, we should be inspected. This is our chance. If they come and go without discovering the nuke, we can tell the world we're clean. Of course, it's risky, and we'll have to make sure everything's perfect, but it'll be worth it.
Huey, can they do an inspection without going through the Board of Governors?
We contacted the IAEA's admin branch, and they said there's no record of us being brought up at any of the board's meetings.
I'd say probably a preliminary inspection to determine whether we should be referred to the board. So it's bound to be a small inspection team, and they won't be here that long. Don't worry, leave everything to me.
Has the media gotten wind of this?
Yeah, 2 major Western networks want to do stories on us. I planned on saying yes.
What? You want to broadcast this place to the world?
That's why I agreed to the inspection. This is a golden opportunity.
You should have talked to them
We can
first,
use
though.
the media to prove to the world we don't have a nuke. Besides, even if we said no, it would just be delaying the inevitable.
Kaz, our hands are tied now. Start getting the place ready.
Thanks, boss.
Don't get the wrong idea. You've set it up so that any more changes of heart will arouse suspicion, that's all.
Zeke stays, but we'll have to move all other AFVs to shore. Any potential troublemakers can go with them for some mandatory R&R. Sound good, boss?
Just do it.
Do it. Just do it.
About the inspection, what do we tell the men?
The truth. What else? The one thing we don't need to worry about is anyone here spilling the beans about Zeke.
Good point. What about the Sandinistas? There's still quite a few of them left on the base.
I hate to say it, but it won't look good having Soviet bloc personnel here. The problem is, moving a group that size in a hurry would look even worse.
At least Amanda's on assignment in Cuba. They'd recognize her. She should stay put for now.
All civilians save Huey will have to return to their countries.
Even your Parisian.
Of course, we'll get her whatever paper she needs. Dr. Strangelove's departure came at a perfect time. The less Zeke-related staff here, the better.
Wait, she left?
That's right. You were away on a mission. She left last week. There's nothing cooking in AI weapons research, and Zeke is complete. There was really no reason for her to hang around.
I'm surprised Huey let her go that easy.
Yeah, his crush on Strangelove was never much of a secret, huh? He followed her everywhere while Zeke was in development. Boy, would she get pissed. But he does have a lot on his mind right now. I've got bigger issues to deal with. That's what he said.
That's the spirit, Huey.
10 days ago, we got reports that Paz was still alive.
She survived.
She was rescued by Belizean fishermen who found her drifting in the Caribbean.
So what's the plan? Silence her before we're compromised?
No. I've got something else in mind. Our friends at Cypher suspect Paz could be a double agent. She's being held for interrogation at a camp on the southern tip of Cuba.
Black site. Nice. A slice of American pie on communist soil, and out of U.S. legal jurisdiction.
The upcoming inspection of Mother Base has to be connected somehow. The timing's too perfect.
The UN's nuclear inspection.
My guess is they're trying to corroborate Paz's leak.
We're an army without a nation.
Word of our capabilities gets out, and we'll have the whole world out to shut us down. Having an American private intelligence agency involved's bad news. Cypher's the ones who sent Paz to us in the first place.
She knows their true nature.
Right. Paz is our only link to Cypher. If she's still alive, we need her on our side. If not us,
She wants
who
to be
else
on
is
your
gonna rescue
side.
that bitch?
When do we do it?
The inspection comes first. We'll deal with this afterwards.
Do the men know?
Word has started to spread. The information came from Cuba through Amanda. One of the base personnel used to belong to El Frente. I'll tell everyone we don't concern ourselves with the survival of enemy spies. We need them focused on the inspection. And if we get her back here and she isn't cooperative, there's still plenty of room for her in the ocean.
Works for me. What about Chico? He had a chance to stop Paz from hijacking Zeke and he blew it. He's carried that guilt ever since. Kid really did care about her.
Chico, it's hard to say how he'll react.
Have Amanda call him out to Cuba. He shouldn't be here right now.
Good idea. They haven't seen each other in a while. Little time with Big Sis and he'll forget all about you-know-who. What? Still no sign of Chico?
What's going on?
It's Amanda in Cuba. Our resupply package arrived, but Chico wasn't with it. Relax, Amanda. I'm sure he's just exploring Havana or something. First time in the big city. Could have gotten carried away.
Cos, wait. The boat Chico was on, did it stop anywhere before it got to Havana?
Yeah, it had to refuel at Santiago de Cuba. You don't think... Oh, shit. You gotta be kidding me. He does this now?
It's 60 miles from Santiago to the prison camp. Chico used to cross the mountains with the older Sandinistas like it was nothing. He'll make that in 3 days.
Still, even if he does find his way there.
You know how reckless he can be. Chico thinks we've abandoned Paz. That's why he's doing this.
We'll start by having the intel detachment in Cuba look for him. We can't let him be captured.
There's some cages to the east of a big building. It's an old grassy facility. That's where we are. Help me, Snake.
It's a setup.
We have no choice.
Yeah, if Chico talks, he could blow the nuke cover up. We can't hold off until the inspection's over.
When can we be ready?
It'll take at least 16 hours to confirm the flight path and prep a bird. The intel unit has started reconning the area.
Sounds like I'll have to miss the inspection.
Boss, we'll just have to send someone else to get them out.
No. I'll go.
Yeah, Chico and Paz would only take orders from you anyway. We can't go taking on those Marines at the base head-on. It's gotta be off the radar, and it's gotta be you.
It's
Hold
gotta
on
be
before it
me.
Snake, you can forget about civil liberties where you're headed. God only knows what they'd do to you if you got caught.
Seriously.
Do not let that happen. The Cubans leased the land to the U.S. as a gesture for helping them gain independence from Spain. The deal remains in effect until both countries agree to dissolve it, or the U.S. abandons the land. That's why America still operates the base even after La Revolucion.
Okay.
Problem is,
I actually didn't know that.
it's leased land.
Meaning it isn't American soil, so the U.S. Constitution doesn't apply there. That allows them to withhold its civil rights protection.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's Uncle Sam's excuse.
Oh, okay.
The area was
okay.
originally only for
I didn't know
detaining
that. That makes
refugees from
sense.
countries like Cuba and Haiti. But a few years ago, the CIA
always wondered
and its like
why,
started using it as a black site.
Like, Americans can
Enemies
send
of the state are
people to
renditioned there
Guantanamo
and subjected
Bay
to extreme
and do all
forms
those
of
horrible things to
interrogation.
them. How that's,
you can bet
like, legal,
Cypher had
but
a hand in that. As
there are
you'd
loopholes.
expect, American and other Western human rights organizations aren't allowed anywhere near the place. What happens there disappears down the memory hole.
Who knows what they're doing to Chico and Paz?
I'd like to interrogate her ourselves, but if worst comes to worst, make sure she's dead. Chico, on the other hand, we have to bring back, fast. He knows too much about us.
Cos?
The area is surrounded by mines placed by both the US and Cuba, making escape on foot impossible. You're heading into the Lion's Den, Snake. Don't take this one lightly. Come back in one piece.
Yeah.
We'll try. Whew. Alright. I think that's a lot of great preparation for this upcoming game. Oh, I'm excited now. Okay. Those cassette tapes from Peace Walker, thank you very much for having me listen to those. Those were wonderful. And it's good to know, what's going on with this, and that Chico was in love with Paz, and Paz actually didn't want to go through with it in the end. I want to meet Nuke! We never got to meet Nuke. We better fucking meet Nuke in this game. I swear to God. We better. I'm gonna, flip my lid if we don't get to meet Nuke. Anyways, yeah. This was great. Tomorrow, Frustration Friday, we're not gonna start Ground Zeroes until next week. Alright, so don't ask me. No. Alright, so Friday we're gonna do some kind of frustration, whether it's trying to finish God of War Ascension, Resident Evil 2, Blasphemous, or Tomb Raider. We're gonna do one of those tomorrow, and then Saturday we're gonna hopefully finish Alien Isolation. And then I'd say either Sunday or Monday, depending on, when I get up and running with this, we will start Ground Zeroes, which I'm very excited to do. Ready to get back into Metal Gear Solid stuff. So, if you like this video, go ahead, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to become a friend, and all.